Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Kalen DeBoer, this Alabama program, have a massive opportunity over this weekend to really build some momentum on the recruiting trail, hosting a ton of top targets from all over the country. Want to dive into some of the names that really stand out to me for this Alabama program, but where I want to start is the amount of buzz that Kalen DeBoer is generating on the recruiting trail. If you go back a couple of months when Kalen DeBoer was named head coach of this Alabama program, and I got up and said, I have no question marks about Kalen DeBoer as a football coach. I think he is one of the best pure football minds and coaches that you see across the country, in the track record of him being head football coach certainly backs that up. I think a lot of the questions that we had, and I know a lot of Alabama fans kind of shared this sentiment, was what is it going to look like on the recruiting trail for Kalen DeBoer coming to the SEC, a kind of geographic location that he had very little experience with? Can he get it done like Nick Saban got it done for so many years? And you look at what he's done over the last couple of months and say, we're starting to get our answer. And Kalen DeBoer, this Alabama program, not really missing a beat on the recruiting trail, fired up for the next couple of weeks and months with this program on the recruiting trail. Before we get into the visitor list, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Alabama fans, whether we're talking this program in the transfer portal, on the recruiting trail. It's been an absolute blast. The amount of support you guys have shown the boys, it truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into some of the visitors that really intrigue me the most. And I want to start with quarterback Keelon Russell, playing his high school football at Duncanville in Texas, committed to SMU. As I look at this situation, I have a very hard time seeing Keelon Russell signing with SMU come signing day. This is a quarterback that, I mean, for lack of better terms, has just skyrocketed up a lot of programs' boards. And you look at Alabama, that's one of those programs that I think can flip a guy like Keelon Russell. And you look at Kalen DeBoer and how he can just maximize his offensive talent. If you can maximize a guy like Keelon Russell, I think you're looking at one of the quarterbacks that has the highest ceiling across the 2025 class at that quarterback position. You start diving into the numbers and say a 72% completion percentage in 2023, threw for over 3,400 yards, 38 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions, holds a 29-1 record as a starting quarterback at the high school rank. Those are some of the numbers that really intrigue you the most. And that's something that I think is important when you're evaluating quarterbacks at the high school level. I mean, I want quarterbacks that have been winners at the highest level in the state of Texas. And that is exactly what Keelon Russell represents. Now, we just talked about what he can do through the air. I think arguably his best asset is what he can do from an athleticism standpoint. You're not talking about just a solid athlete at the quarterback position. You are talking about an elite athlete at the quarterback position. And what I think really stands out with Keelon Russell is he is not overly reliant on using his legs, but he's the best athlete in the country at the quarterback spot. And so when you have a quarterback that is such a threat in terms of what he can do breaking the pocket, what he can do in kind of those backyard football situations, but also combine that with a really polished pocket passer who's thrown for over 3,400 yards during his junior campaign, that's what I think is really special about Keelon Russell. I would be very surprised if he does not finish this 2025 cycle as a 5-star quarterback. And quite frankly, I think would be a very good fit in this Kalen DeBoer offense, because you look at his skill set, not only a great athlete, but can get the football to every single blade of grass on the field. And you look at what made Michael Penix so special. There was not a throw that Michael Penix could not make in that Kalen DeBoer system. I think Keelon Russell can come in and really take those reins and lead this offense and give this offense an extremely, extremely high ceiling over the next couple of years. One of my favorite prospects in this 2025 cycle. Next guy I want to talk about, 5-star offensive tackle Ty Haywood. And where you start with Ty Haywood is this kid's a box checker. I mean, every single physical trait that you want in a starting offensive tackle, Ty Haywood has it. And I think what's really special about Ty Haywood is not only does he have a super high ceiling, you're talking about a guy that very well could be a top 10 NFL draft pick over the next couple of years, but the high floor is there as well. And you don't normally talk about high school kids with high ceilings and high floors, right? They're normally a high ceiling guy, but potentially a low floor, more a high floor guy, but maybe not necessarily that high of a ceiling. You look at Ty Haywood and say, this kid could be one of the best tackles in all of college football. But then you look at the floor and say, it's hard to see Ty Haywood not being an all SEC caliber offensive tackle at the college level. I am a massive fan of Ty Haywood, 6'5", 285, extremely long arms, a very functional athlete at that tackle spot, big time power in his hands. And that kind of makes sense when you look at the athletic profile, a big time track and field discus thrower. You see that translate to the tape on Friday nights. I think Ty Haywood, kind of just a bona fide stud at the college football level. And you look at Alabama and the young talent that they're collecting on the offensive line. Kalen DeBoer is not used to having this caliber of offensive line. And I get Washington had a solid offensive line in 2023, but just the physical dominance of some of these young cats coming into this Alabama program, Ty Haywood would certainly add to that. Next guy I want to talk about, Andrew Olish, 4-star tight end from the state of Pennsylvania. You dive into the athletic profile, into the film, and say, this could potentially be Caleb Bowden 2.0. And you look at 6'5", 215 pounds, and what really stands out to me is how fluid and functional he is with that frame. Normally, you see these tight ends with massive frames and say, hey, I absolutely love the frame, the catch radius that they give, but they're not necessarily the most fluid and functional athletes. You take a look at Andrew Olish. This is a guy that has a tight end frame, but runs routes and moves vertically downfield like a wide receiver. When you talk about Caleb Bowden and how he's going to fit into this Alabama offense, I think Andrew Olish kind of brings a very similar set of skills to this Alabama offense. And I think if I'm Andrew Olish, I'm keeping an eye on what Caleb Bowden looks like in this Alabama offense. And from what you heard there in the spring, he's looking pretty good, and say that's kind of the role that I see myself playing, as that jumbo wide receiver that can kind of get moved all around the field. And if you want to play him as an inline tight end, he certainly can do that too. A 6'5" frame, you could easily get Andrew Olish up to 240 pounds and have an inline tight end that can get it done in the blocking game as well. Big fan of Andrew Olish, big fan of the potential fit in this Alabama offense. Going to the next offensive player I want to talk about, and that is 4-star running back from modern day, Jordan Davison. And you look at Alabama and the success they've had recruiting the West Coast, specifically modern day high school, and say, I mean, Alabama, that's their farm system. You look at some of the guys that they've taken from Alabama. Obviously, Bryce Young comes to mind. You look at Jordan Davison, kind of similar to what we talked about with Ty Haywood, box checker. I mean, you look at the traits you want in a running back and say, all right, really thick lower half, deals with contact exceptionally well, a no-nonsense running back that wants to get downhill. That's what Jordan Davison was going to bring to his college football program. And although not necessarily the long speed that is draw dropping, this is a guy that when you put him in a phone booth, when you ask him to operate between the tackles, he's extremely decisive. He has phenomenal vision, and he's really quick. I mean, he routinely makes people miss in short area spaces. And they kind of said quicker than fast in kind of my scouting notes. That's probably how I would describe Jordan Davison as an athlete, where the quick twitch is kind of on another level. He deals with contact exceptionally well, and maybe not necessarily the breakaway speed, but certainly is fast enough to hit some of those chunk plays. Big fan of Jordan Davison. And the last guy I want to talk about, another modern day kid, Chuck McDonald on the defensive side of the football. I think you're looking at a maybe Malachi Moore-ish kind of guy. At least he has the body. He plays that nickel role for modern day. And a couple things that you really like about Chuck McDonald is he's a guy that could play the boundary cornerback spot if you want him to, but you take a look at the film and say, you want this guy by the tackle box because his ability to fire downhill, make tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage, that's what really stands out. He has the long speed in the frame to play on the boundary, right? Runs an 11-second 100-meter dash. He is certainly not slow, but the quick twitch that he has, the ability to trigger downhill, be a run supporter, tackle guys in the flats, that's kind of his skill set that I think really where he excels in. And you look at Alabama and what they've done on the recruiting trail, Xavier Brown, Jalen Mbakwe, Xavier Mincy. It is a really loaded secondary for Alabama over the next couple of years. And I think Chuck McDonald could kind of come in and maybe give that Malachi Moore feel to this Alabama defense. Another guy that I am a massive fan of. Those are the names that really stood out to me for this Alabama program. We'll keep you guys updated if we get any commitments over the weekend. We'll certainly be breaking those down. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Going to be a fun program to talk about over the next couple of weeks. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.